Forget everything you think you know about power in Rome. It wasn't just the emperors or the senators pulling the strings of the greatest empire in history. There was a group of men on the battlefield with far more influence than you could imagine. The Centurions, battle-hardened leaders, not only commanded legions but secretly shaped the political fate of the empire. You might believe Roman politics happened in the palaces and the Senate. But what if I told you that, far from the public eye, in distant provinces, it was the Centurions who truly decided who rose and who fell? These men, forged in the fires of battle, dealt directly with provincial governors, influencing decisions that reached far beyond the walls of Rome. What happens when the steel of the battlefield meets the games of political power? How did these military leaders, unknown to many, shape the strategies that molded the empire? Get ready to discover how the true force behind Roman politics wasn't in the gilded halls of power, but in the hands of the Centurions who controlled the course of history. Today, we're going to unveil the dark, hidden interactions between Centurions and governors, and how these men of war became masters of politics. What you're about to learn will forever change the way you see power in the Roman Empire. Let's begin. Centurions were the heart of the Roman military machine, representing far more than just officers commanding troops. Selected for their combat experience, discipline, and leadership skills, they were the backbone of the Roman legions. A centurion's role was to enforce discipline, ensuring the men under their command were battle-ready and capable of carrying out complex military maneuvers. While their immediate responsibility lay with the roughly 80 men in their century, their influence extended well beyond the battlefield. Centurions were a vital link between the rank-and-file soldiers and the higher echelons of Roman command. This positioned them uniquely within both the military and the broader fabric of Roman society. However, the real power of the Centurions was not confined to military matters alone. These battle-hardened leaders often operated in a political gray area, especially in the provinces where they were stationed. Roman provinces were vast, many of them far from the center of power in Rome, and it was the Centurions who frequently became the face of Roman authority. Tasked with maintaining order, they worked closely with provincial governors, but also wielded their own form of influence. The Centurions were often the ones who understood the local conditions best, given their direct involvement in both military actions and civil administration. Their advice and counsel were invaluable to governors who might not have had the same on-the-ground experience. In many cases, the lines between military leadership and political maneuvering began to blur. Centurions had to navigate complex local politics, and their decisions could shape the success or failure of provincial governance. In some instances, they were responsible for enforcing laws, collecting taxes, and quelling rebellions, tasks that placed them squarely in the political arena. Over time, this gave Centurions an outsized role in determining the direction of provincial policies. The governors may have been the official rulers, but it was often the Centurions who had the most intimate understanding of the people and the land they controlled. This knowledge gave them leverage in their dealings with governors, sometimes allowing them to shape decisions in ways that favored their military objectives. The Centurions' ability to influence both military and political decisions was amplified by their relationships with local elites. In many provinces, Centurions forged alliances with local leaders, landowners, and influential figures. These relationships were crucial in maintaining stability, but also provided Centurions with additional political clout. By aligning themselves with the local power structures, Centurions could exert influence not just over their soldiers, but over the broader administrative and political framework of the province. Their dual role as military commanders and political operators made them indispensable to the smooth functioning of the empire, particularly in regions far from the emperor's direct control. As the empire grew, Centurions became increasingly involved in matters that transcended military discipline. They played pivotal roles in shaping the very structure of Roman governance in the provinces, acting as intermediaries between the Roman state and the conquered peoples. This elevated their status from mere military officers to powerful political actors. While history often highlights the emperors and senators as the key players in Roman politics, the reality is that the Centurions, with their boots on the ground and their hands on the pulse of the provinces, were the ones who often made the empire's complex machinery run smoothly. The Roman provincial system relied heavily on the presence of governors, who were appointed to maintain order, collect taxes, and ensure the flow of resources back to Rome. Yet, despite their official titles and the authority vested in them by the emperor or senate, provincial governors were often at the mercy of the centurions under their command. These governors were political appointees, often with limited military experience, and they depended on the expertise of centurions to enforce their will. This reliance on military leaders created a power dynamic where the governor's theoretical authority was often overshadowed by the practical influence of the centurions, especially in times of crisis. In many provinces, the relationship between the governor and the centurion was one of mutual dependence. The governor needed the centurion to maintain control of the soldiers and ensure the stability of the region, while the centurion relied on the governor for political legitimacy and resources. However, this balance could easily shift. Centurions, with their command over the troops, held a kind of power that could make or break a governor's ability to rule effectively. In provinces where rebellion or unrest was common, the governor's success hinged almost entirely on the centurion's ability to command loyalty and enforce discipline among the troops. A weak or inexperienced governor could quickly find himself undermined by a powerful centurion. This dynamic led to situations where centurions effectively became the true rulers of the provinces. While governors dealt with official matters and communicated with Rome, centurions handled the day-to-day realities of governing a distant and often hostile territory. Their influence extended into decisions about local governance, military strategy, and even economic policies. In some cases, centurions could manipulate the governor into making decisions that favored the military or their own personal interests. This manipulation was often subtle, playing on the governor's lack of military expertise or his fear of losing control over the province. Centurions also had a unique relationship with the local population, which further bolstered their power. They were not only military leaders but also intermediaries between the Roman state and the provincial subjects. Many centurions developed strong ties with local elites, merchants, and landowners, using these connections to maintain peace and order. These relationships often gave them more insight into the needs and concerns of the province than the governors themselves. As a result, centurions could leverage their local influence to sway political decisions, sometimes bypassing the governor altogether and dealing directly with local power brokers. The power imbalance between governors and centurions became even more pronounced during times of war or civil unrest. When the stability of the province was threatened, it was the centurions who took the lead in military campaigns and crisis management. In these moments, the governor's role became largely symbolic, with real power resting in the hands of the centurions. Over time, this dynamic blurred the lines between military and political authority, making it difficult to determine where one ended and the other began. The Roman Empire's reliance on its military for both defense and governance ensured that centurions, far from being mere soldiers, were key political figures in their own right. While most people imagine the Roman battlefield as a place of brute force and strategy, it was also a ground for subtle political maneuvering. Centurions were not just tacticians. They were political operators. Their deep involvement in military campaigns put them in a unique position to influence decisions that went beyond immediate combat tactics. In many cases, the outcome of a battle was as much about forging alliances and managing rivalries within the ranks as it was about defeating the enemy. Centurions, with their years of experience and connections within the military hierarchy, were often at the center of these intricate webs of influence. Centurions would sometimes form alliances with other military leaders or even with local rulers to secure advantages that went beyond the battlefield. These relationships were not just about military success, but also about securing political power within the Roman system. For example, by aligning themselves with influential figures in the provinces, centurions could increase their leverage over provincial governors, who might be more politically connected but less familiar with the local situation. These alliances helped centurions shape not only military outcomes, but also the political landscape of the regions they controlled. In many ways, the Centurions' success on the battlefield was tied directly to their ability to navigate and manipulate political relationships both within and outside of Rome. In addition to alliances, Centurions were known to engage in conspiracies, either to remove unfavorable governors or to elevate their own status within the empire. Some Centurions even became involved in plots that aimed to influence the decisions of the emperor himself. These conspiracies could be incredibly subtle, with Centurions using their military clout to manipulate governors into making decisions that ultimately served their own interests. In extreme cases, this even led to the assassination of governors who had fallen out of favor with the military leadership. The blurred lines between military and political authority created an environment ripe for such conspiracies, where the Centurions could operate in the shadows, often unseen by the official power structures of Rome. Centurions' involvement in these conspiracies was facilitated by their command over the soldiers. The loyalty of the troops was crucial, not just in combat, but also in maintaining political control. A centurion who had the trust and respect of his soldiers could effectively control a province, even without the formal backing of the governor. This military power gave the Centurions leverage in their political dealings, allowing them to threaten or support governors as they saw fit. The soldiers under a centurion's command were not just instruments of war. They were political tools that could be used to sway decisions and shape the future of the empire. While these conspiracies and alliances were often hidden from the public eye, their effects were profound. They influenced not only the immediate outcomes of military campaigns, but also the broader strategies that shaped the Roman Empire. Decisions made on the battlefield had far-reaching political consequences, and the Centurions, with their dual roles as military commanders and political influencers, were at the heart of it all. As the empire expanded and faced increasing internal and external pressures, the Centurions' ability to forge alliances and engage in conspiracies became a critical factor in the survival and stability of Roman rule in the provinces. The influence of Centurions didn't fade with their retirement or death. Their legacy continued to shape the political and military fabric of the Roman Empire long after they had left the battlefield. As key players in both the military and provincial politics, Centurions left behind a complex web of alliances, decisions, and strategies that would influence the empire for generations. Many Centurions were promoted to higher political offices after their military service, bringing their battlefield-honed skills to the upper echelons of Roman governance. This ensured that their influence persisted, even in the more formal political structures of Rome. The political impact of the Centurions was also felt in the way they shaped the leadership of the provinces. Governors who had worked closely with Centurions often adopted military strategies and policies that reflected the Centurions' influence. These strategies emphasized discipline, order, and a pragmatic approach to governance that mirrored the Centurions' approach to command on the battlefield. As a result, the Roman provinces became more militarized in both their administration and their culture, with centurion-like figures playing crucial roles in maintaining stability and enforcing Roman rule. In addition to shaping governance, centurions played a key role in the evolution of the Roman military itself. Their experience on the front lines led to reforms that improved the efficiency and effectiveness of the Roman legions. Many of these reforms were informal at first, adjustments made by centurions in the field to address specific challenges. But over time, they became codified into Roman military doctrine. Centurions also passed down their knowledge and tactics to the next generation of Roman military leaders, ensuring that their approach to warfare and governance would continue to influence the empire long after their service had ended. The legacy of the Centurions extended beyond the Roman Empire itself. As Rome expanded and absorbed new territories, the Centurions' methods of leadership and governance were adopted by local rulers and military leaders in the provinces. These leaders, trained and influenced by the Roman military, spread centurion-like principles of discipline and strategy throughout the empire and beyond. This contributed to the lasting impact of Roman military and political culture, which would influence societies long after the fall of the empire. In this way, the Centurions not only shaped the empire during their lifetimes, but also left a lasting imprint on the world. The invisible power of the Centurions is often overlooked in traditional accounts of Roman history. which tend to focus on emperors, senators, and governors. Yet the centurions were the ones who enforced the will of these leaders, and in many cases, shaped that will through their influence on the battlefield and in the provinces. Their legacy is a reminder that the true power in Rome was not always found in the halls of the Senate or the emperor's palace, but in the hands of those who commanded the loyalty of the legions. These men, often unsung and working behind the scenes, were the ones who truly controlled the fate of the empire.